Avoidant people don't panic because of you, they panic because of what intimacy triggers inside them. This is the part most people never understand, and it's the reason avoidant behavior feels so confusing, so inconsistent, and so painfully personal. When you get close to them, you think they're reacting to times you asterisk. You think they're pulling away because of something you did, something you said, or something they suddenly decided about the relationship. But the truth is far deeper and much more fragile. Their nervous system is reacting to a threat that isn't even present. Their body is responding to a danger that doesn't exist, and that danger is emotional closeness. Avoidants weren't born this way, they were shaped this way. Somewhere in their past, closeness felt overwhelming, love felt unpredictable, vulnerability felt unsafe. Opening up led to disappointment, rejection, or emotional abandonment. So they learned something that became part of them. If I get too close, I will get hurt. That lesson doesn't disappear just because they meet someone good. It doesn't disappear just because you're kind, patient, understanding, or emotionally available. It stays wired into their system like a survival reflex. So when someone like you comes into their life, someone who brings warmth, stability, affection, and emotional depth, their mind wants it, but their body goes into alarm. Their thoughts say, I like them. Their heart says, I feel something real. But their nervous system screams, run. And that panic doesn't come from logic, it comes from memory. It comes from fear. It comes from unprocessed wounds. It comes from a part of them that learned to protect survival, not connection. This is why avoidance suddenly shut down after a moment of closeness. This is why they pull away at the exact moment the relationship feels beautiful. This is why they become distant after deep conversations, emotional intimacy, physical connection, or vulnerability. It's not because the moment was wrong, it's because the moment was right. And right terrifies them because right feels like risk. They confuse love with danger. They confuse comfort with exposure. They confuse closeness with losing control. And here's the painful part. The more they like you, the more their fear spikes. Avoidants never panic around people they don't care about. They don't run from casual connections. They don't get overwhelmed by someone who doesn't matter. But when someone touches their heart even lightly, their system goes into overdrive. They feel the possibility of loss. They feel the possibility of being seen. They feel the possibility of needing someone. And needing someone feels like weakness in their world, because needing once led to pain. So their panic isn't about your love, it's about their fear of love. It's about the battle inside them, between wanting connection and fearing it at the same time. When you reach out, they don't feel your affection, they feel pressure. When you want closeness, they don't feel warmth, they feel exposure. When you offer emotional intimacy, they don't feel safe, they feel vulnerable. And when someone with an avoidant attachment style feels vulnerable, they retreat immediately. This is why leaving them alone, stepping back, or giving them space changes everything. When you stop reaching, their nervous system stops feeling crowded. When you stop trying to fix the dynamic, they stop feeling attacked. When you reduce emotional intensity, their fear quiets. Their panic isn't about you, it's about their own history, their own defenses, their own inability to stay present when emotions rise. Understanding this shifts everything. It shows you that their distance wasn't rejection, it was self-protection. Their silence wasn't indifference, it was overwhelm. Their pullback wasn't disinterest, it was fear. And fear, for an avoidant, is louder than love until they have space to breathe. When you finally stop reaching out to an avoidant, something happens inside them that they never expected and something you could never see while you were still trying to hold the connection together. Avoidants don't process emotions in real time. They don't understand their feelings in the moment. They don't reflect while you're trying to talk to them. Their emotional clarity only begins asterisk, asterisk after asterisk, asterisk. You stop. After you step back. After you withdraw your energy. They don't understand the connection when you're present. They understand it when you're gone. The very moment you stop calling, stop explaining, stop chasing, stop trying to create closeness, their nervous system does something it hasn't done in a long time. It calms down. The emotional alarm inside them, the one that rings every time they feel vulnerable, suddenly grows quiet. For the first time they can breathe. For the first time their thoughts slow down. For the first time they are not drowning in the intensity of connection. And in that emotional quiet, something new starts to happen. Feelings begin to rise where fear once lived. Avoidants don't have emotional space for feelings when they're overwhelmed. But when you step back, you remove the pressure, you remove the intensity, you remove the expectation. And in that space, their mind is finally free to think about you without panic. They start remembering moments with you that felt warm, not suffocating. They start replaying conversations that once made them feel understood, not exposed. They start noticing the difference between your presence and your absence. They start recognizing how much emotional safety you actually brought into their life. Safety they were too triggered to appreciate before. This is the beginning of their emotional awakening. Not during the connection, but during the separation. When you were reaching out, their fear drowned your love. When you were trying, their defenses blocked your intention. When you were present, their panic interpreted presence as pressure. But when you stop, the fear has nothing left to push against. The defenses have nothing left to fight. The panic has nothing left to misinterpret. And in that vacuum of silence, their real feelings, the ones buried under layers of avoidance, start surfacing. They begin to notice how peaceful you always were. They begin to miss your emotional warmth. They begin to crave the stability you brought to their chaos. They begin to realize they pushed away something safe, not something dangerous. And it hits them quietly at first in small, subtle ways. They check your profile without meaning to. They wonder what you're doing. They think about messaging you and then stop themselves. They remember your kindness in moments they least expect. They notice that other people don't make them feel the way you did. They start mentally replaying things they said or didn't say. They start feeling a tug, a pull they don't understand yet but can't ignore. This is the internal shift avoidants never talk about. This is the moment you can't see, but they feel intensely. Your silence becomes louder than your presence ever was. Not because you abandoned them, but because for the first time, their mind isn't running from you. It's running times the memory of you. Avoidants don't miss people in the moment. They miss people in the space after the moment. They don't feel connection when it's close. They feel connection when it's quiet. They don't understand love when it's offered. They understand love when it's gone. The moment you stop chasing is the moment they start noticing. The moment you pull away is the moment they start feeling. The moment you let go is the moment they finally wake up to what you were. And the moment they wake up is the moment everything inside them begins to shift. When you pull back from an avoidant, something powerful and unexpected happens inside them. Their fear finally shuts off, and their real feelings, the ones buried under layers of self-protection, to begin to rise. This shift is subtle at first, but it is one of the most important psychological transitions an avoidant ever experiences. When you were close, when you were reaching out, when you were emotionally available, they couldn't feel the depth of the connection because their entire system was overwhelmed by survival responses. Closeness didn't feel like connection to them, it felt like pressure. Intimacy didn't feel like love, it felt like exposure. Your presence activated fear stronger than desire, panic stronger than clarity, defenses stronger than affection. But the moment you stop pushing for closeness, the moment your emotional energy softens, the moment your presence steps back, the avoidant finally has enough space to breathe. Their nervous system, which has been in a state of quiet panic for weeks or months, finally begins to settle. And only when fear quiets can love be felt. Only when pressure disappears can desire surface. Only when closeness is no longer being pushed can they actually recognize how much they want it. Your distance doesn't make them forget you, it makes them see you more clearly. For the first time, your kindness doesn't feel suffocating, your emotional depth doesn't feel heavy, your affection doesn't trigger panic, because when you are not pushing closeness, their system doesn't interpret your energy as danger. Instead, they begin to feel the softer side of the connection, the part that was always there but impossible for them to access when fear was in the way. They start remembering how safe you felt, not how overwhelmed they felt. They start replaying the gentle moments, not the triggering ones. They start recognizing your emotional stability, not their own emotional instability. They start noticing the difference between your love and everyone else's. And slowly, their mind shifts from, "I need space," to "Why do I feel empty without them?" It shifts from, "They want too much from me," to "They were the easiest person to be around." It shifts from, "I feel overwhelmed," to "I feel surprisingly calm thinking about them now." This is the moment avoidants begin to understand the connection through a new lens, not through fear, but through clarity. When the fear disappears, the truth appears. Your distance also gives them something they rarely experience: emotional control. Avoidants fear closeness because they feel they will lose themselves. But when you step back, they don't feel invaded anymore. They feel like they have space to approach at their own pace. And once they feel safe enough to approach, something else changes the direction of their desire. Before, they wanted distance. Now, they begin to want you. Before, they needed space from you. Now, they start craving space with you. And this craving doesn't come from panic, it comes from genuine connection. They begin to feel longing instead of fear. They begin to feel curiosity instead of avoidance. They begin to feel affection instead of overwhelm. They begin to feel the emotional pull they've been resisting for so long. Your silence becomes the emotional environment where their real feelings finally become accessible. Not the fear-based responses, not the trauma-based defenses, not the automatic shutdowns, but the deeper emotions they've hidden from you and from themselves. This is why stepping back changes everything. It doesn't weaken the connection. It unblocks it. It doesn't push them away. It stops triggering their fear. It doesn't make them forget you. It allows them to miss you. When your distance lowers their fear, their heart finally has room to speak. And when the fear no longer stands between them and the connection, their real feelings rise with a force they can no longer deny. There comes a moment in every avoidant dynamic when the silence you give them stops feeling like relief and starts feeling like consequence. And this shift is not subtle, it hits them like a slow, creeping ache they can't name, can't escape, and can't soothe with distance anymore. At first, when you step back, the avoidant feels safer. They feel calmer. They feel in control again. Their fear settles, their panic softens, and they relax into the emotional space they desperately needed. But over time, that same space becomes something they didn't expect: loneliness. Not the kind they're used to, the chosen loneliness, the comfortable, solitary bubble, but a new kind that feels uncomfortable, heavy, and strangely unfamiliar. This is the silent turning point, the moment your absence stops regulating them and starts revealing the truth. Avoidants are not immune to connection. They are terrified of it. They don't avoid because they don't feel they avoid, because they feel more than they can handle. And when you were close, the fear overshadowed the emotion. They couldn't tell the difference. They thought the overwhelm was because of you. They thought the panic meant incompatibility. They thought the intensity meant something was wrong. But when you stepped back, they entered the emotional quiet they always believed they preferred. It feels like relief at first until it doesn't, because eventually, the clarity returns. Eventually, the noise inside them fades enough for them to hear their own heart. Eventually, the peace they wanted starts exposing the emptiness they didn't want to face. And in that emptiness, something uncomfortable begins to happen. They begin to feel the loss. Not in dramatic ways at first. In small ways, subtle, unsettling ripples. They notice they're checking their phone more often, even though they expect no message. They notice the silence in their day feels heavier than before. They notice they're thinking about your presence in places where your presence isn't there. They notice the comfort they used to feel from being alone now feels hollow. Your distance becomes a mirror, and it reflects something they've never seen clearly before: how much you were holding the emotional connection without even realizing it. Avoidants always assumed they were the ones maintaining control, that they were the ones dictating closeness, distance, connection, disconnection. They believed they were the ones backing away because they needed space, not because they were afraid of losing someone important. But now, in your silence, they start seeing a different truth. They start seeing how much energy you provided, how much emotional balance you brought, how much subtle stability your presence created. And when they feel that, it triggers something deeper than fear. It triggers recognition. The recognition that the space they thought they wanted doesn't feel safe anymore. The recognition that your absence didn't just quiet their fears, it exposed their needs. The recognition that they didn't push you away because they didn't care, they pushed you away because they didn't know how to handle caring. And now that the connection is quiet, they have nothing left to push against. Their fear has nothing to fight. Their defenses have nothing to justify. Their emotional walls have nothing to hide from. In that stillness, the truth rises. They miss you. Not the idea of you, not the comfort of you, not the benefits of you. Asterisk, asterisk, you, asterisk, asterisk. Your presence, your warmth, your emotional consistency, your patience, your energy, your understanding, your steadiness, your softness. It's in this silence, the silence that once protected them, where they begin to feel the ache of everything they pushed away. This is when they begin to understand what closeness actually offered them. This is when they begin to feel the difference between relief and regret. This is when your absence becomes heavier than your presence ever was, and they realize something they never wanted to face. The space that once saved them now hurts them more than the intimacy they were running from. Avoidants don't truly understand what you meant to them while you're still trying, still reaching, still showing up with devotion and emotional warmth. As long as you are present, available, and consistent, their fear stays louder than their appreciation. They don't process the connection when you're loving them, they process it when you stop. They don't miss you when you're giving, they miss you when you're gone. And this is the part most people don't realize. Avoidants can only recognize your value when they finally get the space they always demanded. And that space becomes the first time they can feel the gravity of losing you. When you're close, their mind is flooded with alarm. Not because of you, but because closeness triggers their deepest survival instincts. They get overwhelmed, overstimulated, emotionally short-circuited. Your presence feels like pressure, even if you're gentle. Your affection feels like expectation, even if it's pure. Your consistency feels like emotional responsibility, even if it's loving. And so, their fear hijacks the connection. They don't see the beauty of what you give, because they're too busy trying to survive the intensity of it. But the moment you stop, everything inside them shifts. Your silence quiets their fear, and the moment fear quiets, the heart speaks. They begin noticing things they never noticed when they were overwhelmed. They feel the absence of your presence. They feel the difference in their day. They feel the emptiness where your energy used to be. They feel the loss of your emotional warmth, your softness, your understanding. It doesn't hit them all at once. It hits slowly, like waves wearing down a shoreline. At first, it's subtle, a random memory, an unexpected thought, a little tug in their chest. They brush it off. They rationalize it. They pretend it's nothing. But the space keeps working on them. It keeps showing them what life feels like without you. And that comparison becomes impossible to ignore. They notice other people don't speak with your gentleness. They notice no one listens the way you listened. They notice conversations feel shallow without your depth. They notice interactions feel colder without your emotional intelligence. They notice the peace you brought, peace they didn't know they needed until it disappeared. Avoidants live in emotional extremes, and when you were there they felt overwhelmed. But now that you're gone, they feel the opposite, deprived. They feel the absence of emotional grounding. They feel the discomfort of their own loneliness. They feel the consequences of the very distance they believed they needed. And then, the truth hits. They didn't feel overwhelmed because you were too much. They felt overwhelmed because you were the first real connection they ever had. Your distance forces them to confront what they've been running from, not you, but themselves. Because without you, they're left alone with the emptiness they've been avoiding their entire life. And in that emptiness, they realize something profound. You brought something meaningful into their life. Something safe, something rare, something they didn't know how to receive, but now desperately miss. Your absence becomes the teacher they never expected. It teaches them what your presence actually was. It teaches them that their avoidance didn't protect them, it cost them. It teaches them that needing space was one thing, but losing you is another. It teaches them that distance can calm fear, but it can also create regret. It teaches them that what they pushed away wasn't pressure, it was connection. And this is why avoidants only see your value after space. Because only in space can the fear fade enough for love to be felt. Only in space can they see the difference between "you were overwhelming and my fear overwhelmed me." Only in space can they finally recognize that what they were running from was exactly what they needed. Your distance reveals the truth their fear always hid. You weren't the problem. You were the safe place they never learned how to stay with. There is a moment in every avoidance emotional journey when everything they believed about themselves, about relationships, and about you gets flipped upside down the moment they realize the only reason they could finally stop running was because you stopped chasing. And this realization doesn't come softly. It doesn't come gently. It arrives like a heavy truth settling into their chest. Your letting go was the very thing that gave them the space to come back authentically, not out of fear, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but because something real inside them finally woke up. Avoidants spend their whole lives believing closeness will trap them. They build their identities around independence, around emotional self-protection, around the belief that needing someone makes them weak, that asking for help makes them vulnerable, that affection demands something from them they cannot give. They convince themselves that distance is power, that silence protects them, that shutting down keeps them safe. And as long as you kept reaching, they held on to that illusion. As long as you kept showing up, they told themselves they weren't losing anything. As long as you kept trying, they didn't have to face themselves. But when you stepped back calmly, gracefully, without drama, you broke that entire system. You took away the safety net of your effort. You took away the certainty that you would always be there. You took away the excuse that they needed space because you were too much. And suddenly, they were left alone with nothing to push against, nothing to blame, nothing to run from except their own fear. This is the moment avoidants finally start to change. They realize that the space they thought they needed wasn't space from you, it was space from their own panic. They realized that the distance they kept creating didn't fix anything inside them. It only numbed them temporarily. They realized that the silence they relied on to feel in control is the same silence that now feels haunting, heavy, and uncomfortable. And they realized that your letting go wasn't abandonment, it was respect. It was honoring yourself. It was giving them what they claimed they needed, even though it cost you. This hits them harder than anything else because it forces them to see the truth they've avoided their whole life. You weren't trying to trap them. You were trying to love them. You weren't trying to control them. You were trying to understand them. You weren't clinging. You were showing loyalty. And you weren't chasing because you were desperate. You were chasing because you believed in the connection. When you stop, they finally see all of that clearly. Your letting go shows them that you were never trying to own them. Your silence shows them that you were never trying to overstep. Your distance shows them that you were never trying to suffocate. Your absence shows them that you were never trying to pressure them. Instead, you were giving love in a way they've never experienced. A love that stayed until staying hurt you. A love that didn't punish them. A love that didn't demand. A love that didn't scream or beg. When you let go, they feel the truth of your love more than they ever did when you were trying. And this is the plot twist that breaks them open. You had to walk away so they could finally face themselves. You had to stop trying so they could start realizing. You had to remove your energy so they could feel their own. You had to let them feel the consequences of avoidance so they could no longer hide behind it. Your letting go didn't push them away, it freed them from the fear that kept them from approaching you. Your silence didn't end the connection, it ended the dynamic that kept love from growing. Your self-respect didn't drive them off. It created the only environment where they could choose you willingly, not fearfully. Avoidants don't return because you chase. They return when your absence forces them to confront the truth. They were never running from you. They were running from the part of themselves that knows they need you. And once they see that, the fear that once made them flee becomes the reason they come back.